That's right. We're getting new information on that breaking news that we've been following in San Francisco. 2 women are dead, and police have now arrested a suspected hit-and-run driver. It all happened near the intersection of Mission and 2nd Streets this afternoon.
To say that San Francisco is dysfunctional is overstating the obvious. We've seen it far too many ways for far too long. We saw it again here on Pier 14 when Kate Steinle was shot and killed by 5-time deported illegal immigrant Jose Zarate. Political hacks in sanctuary city San Francisco got the chance to deflect blame from one bureaucracy to the next. But in the end, Kate Steinle's killer casually walked on a murder, involuntary manslaughter charge and gleefully ate a felon in possession of a firearm charge, which the appeals court quickly overturned. Yeah, the DA at the time, George Gascon, piled on to his voluminous camera time for this case and gallantly fell on his sword and took the blame for that fiasco. But it should be noted he only managed to do so after attacking the recently elected Donald Trump as the real instigator, thus establishing his progressive bona fides and guaranteeing him a fast-track rise to bigger and more lucrative grifts. After what is universally regarded as a failed term as DA in San Fran, Gascon did what progressives do best: get a big promotion at another gig after failing miserably at the previous gig. And just as puppet master George Soros did with a dozen other big city DAs, he issued marching orders for Gascon to enact a host of restorative justice policies destined to wreak havoc in an already reeling Tinseltown. So boo-hoo for LA. At least I got what I'd wished for so long. I got to say goodbye and good riddance to the king of plea bargains, George Gascon. And what am I saying now? Be careful what you wish for. Just like I'd take corrupt Willie Brown as mayor over progressively worse Ed Lee and London Breed. And I think I'd take useless George over his replacement any day. And thanks to San Francisco's crazy ranked choice voting system and more bags of Soros's dough, a guy named CHESA BOUDIN looks up and finds himself replacing Gascon as DA of SF. Now, I could enthrall you with a litany of reasons why this guy CHESA should have never been made DA, but I will direct you to a previous video in which I give the full lowdown on Red CHESA. With a mere 8 hours left on the clock for the year 2020, we all couldn't have been happier to have this cursed year come to an end. But what happened just down the street at 4 p.m. on New Year's Eve provided one more solid kick to the groin before the year 2020 was finally flushed away. But to tell the whole story, we have to go back a couple days to the evening of December 29th, 2020. It was here in Daly City at the Westlake Shopping Center at the Nation's Burger Joint where our story begins. 45-year-old, 2 strikes felon and meth-addicted parolee, Troy Ramon McALISTER, was here on a date with a woman he had met on a dating app. Since his parole in April, McALISTER had been arrested 5 times by SFPD, but DA CHESA BOUDIN declined to prosecute any of those cases in order to spare social justice victim McALISTER a 3rd strike that would have put him away forever. So now he was free to explore the exciting world of the online dating scene. It was his 2nd date with this particular woman, but the promise of a romantic Nation's Burger rendezvous never materialized because while waiting for the burgers, McALISTER apparently had a change of heart. Troy then snatched the car keys from his date and ran out to her gray 2017 Honda HR-V and sped off, flipping her the bird as he did so. His date immediately contacted Daly City Police and gave them McALISTER's name and address and informed them he was a felon in possession of a 9mm handgun with an extended magazine. He was also in possession of various drugs, including methamphetamine. But in today's era of restorative justice, that is not really enough to warrant any urgency to apprehend a suspect. And in fact, suspect is a term born out of privilege, and Daly City cops sure didn't want to be seen as colonizers. So they did what most police agencies do in this situation nowadays: nothing. Daly City Police expressed dismay, however, when they were unable to get McALISTER registered to vote before he made his getaway. This was one of, but not the first, in a series of botched administrative inactions performed by numerous highly funded municipal agencies, populated with bountiful staffs of six-figure salaried public servants that led to granting gun-toting, meth-head, multiple felon Troy McALISTER the opportunity to go out into the world and inflict carnage. Here in trendy Soma, or as the realtors like to call it, the East Cut, things have been eerily quiet since COVID-19. One of the unexpected benefits of COVID has been the disappearance of traffic. Traffic would continuously choke these bridge approach streets to the point of gridlock daily. But now it's a breeze driving through these Soma intersections. Apparently taking a break from his dating search on New Year's Eve at approximately 4 p.m., Troy McALISTER had little or no traffic to contend with as he and an unknown male sped northbound on 2nd Street in the stolen Honda, frantically trying to get away from yet another armed robbery. Troy pushed the underpowered Honda to its limit onto northbound 2nd Street off of eastbound Folsom. Liberated now from the bridge approach slowdown, Troy punched it as he rounded that corner. Now gaining speed as he descended Rincon Hill, blowing past the LinkedIn building at 2nd and Howard, he probably thought he couldn't be stopped. And when he approached the intersection of 2nd and Mission, going at a speed estimated by an eyewitness of 70 miles an hour, the reality of the situation didn't register with Troy. Or maybe it did. The traffic light at 2nd and Mission was solidly boring into his vision, red, but it had no effect on his addled brain, because like he had always done before, and like he was always allowed to do by what pitifully counted as authority in his life, Troy did exactly what he wanted to do. He plowed on through. The social unrest of the summer of 2020 did nothing but bolster this sense of self-importance on a guy like Troy McALISTER. A guy down by law his entire life has now in his own mind been vindicated and absolved of all the blame for a lifetime of violent antisocial behavior. And on that late afternoon of New Year's Eve 2020, the only solace was that the crosswalks weren't teeming with pedestrians the way they always were pre-COVID. One of the pedestrians, 60-year-old Elizabeth Platt, died at the scene. The other pedestrian, 27-year-old Hanako Abe of Fukushima, Japan, was rushed to general but later perished. The driver of the other vehicle was uninjured. The unknown male passenger in the car escaped on foot and is still at large. Troy McALISTER also fled on foot into the lobby of a nearby building, but was quickly apprehended by witnesses to the crime and was taken into custody by SFPD. The tragedy that occurred that day in this spot cannot be laid at the feet of anyone but one Troy Ramon McALISTER, and his name should forever burn with rage in our collective psyche. But the almost comic level of blame deflection amongst government agencies charged with protecting the public from this type of atrocity is impressive, even by the craven standards of the inept and corrupt San Francisco progressive regime. Cops, parole agencies, the district attorney, drug addiction treatment centers, the prison system, and even Troy's mom pointed the finger wildly in all directions, except inward. For they all share in the reality that they didn't do their jobs and they all let us down. And the friends and family of Elizabeth Platt and Hanako Abe can only grieve and wonder how this could happen. But the people of San Francisco appear to be done wondering. A petition is circulated and gained traction for a recall of District Attorney CHESA BOUDIN. BOUDIN's missteps in this case were numerous and cannot be casually deflected, as he is predictably attempting to do. BOUDIN's lifetime of radical communist indoctrination has made it impossible for him to fairly carry out his duties. The well has been poisoned by the likes of Bill Ayers, Bernardine Dohrn, the BLA, the Weather Underground, and even the Chinese Communist Party through his association with Venezuelan strongman Hugo Chavez. To this day, BOUDIN works to have his father freed from prison, where he serves out a 75-year sentence for killing a Brinks truck driver in a botched Weather Underground holdup. Only in SF could a resume like that get you elected to district attorney. And as long as progressive politics gain favor in our schools and institutions, it'll happen again. And there's always another crime just around the corner.